Greetings. Welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Thank you, brothers and sisters, for tuning in. So today our guest is a sister who's an inspiration to me. I admire her creativity, her perseverance, and to me, she is a master educator. She's a co-founder of the dynamic independent school known as Elevated Places. I can go on and on about the accolades for our sister. She's that dynamic, and our special guest today is Sister Wakiti Muhammad.
And as an educator, I wanted to teach them more than just what's in books. I wanted to teach them about themselves. I wanted them to know and understand that their virtue was worth protecting. I wanted them to know and understand that they should fight for that virtue. I wanted them to know and understand that no matter what mistakes that they made, that they would never be the sum total of those mistakes. And I wanted them to know that no one should ever be able to put them in a box, because unfortunately that happens to us all of the time. You tell your story, or someone knows about your story, and immediately they put you in a box. Immediately they let you know, or try to make you to know, or try to make you believe that you can do nothing else besides what your story determines. And I wanted to let girls know everywhere that that's absolutely not true, that their destiny is much more important, because God is at the head of that, and he's the one that designs that.
Wow. Yo, watch that. I was watching and preparing that thing. That's a beautiful video, Sister Wakiti. So we're gonna get straight into the interview. Thank you for Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Walaikum salam. I am so humbled to be here. I've been trying, to get multiple. I'm always recommending you interview so many other people who I believe their stories are so much more compelling. So thank you so much. I pray that whatever I share today, that Allah speaks through me.
Yeah, I believe you definitely will. So let's get to this. My first question I want to ask you is about your zeal as an educator. Where does your zeal and your innovation come from? Because as I stated, to me, you are a master educator.
Well, praise be to Allah. Thank you so much for that. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and the institution that I attended was pretty much a homeschool. It was a 2-story home taught by a dynamic educator and a fighter. Her name was Audrey Cox, who was my mentor. And I went through that entire program, and everything that I saw her do is what I tried to duplicate with the Elevated Places and anywhere else that I went before the Elevated Places as an educator, period. I thought that I was a damaged Black girl coming up in New Orleans. You don't really get a chance to have a high self-esteem, especially if you're dark and skinny. And I was both of those things, especially coming up in the hood. It's very difficult to have a really high self-esteem about yourself. And Miss Cox was one of those people who just poured into me consistently. She kept talking about how brilliant I was and how smart I was. And she would always make over everything that we did. And I wanted to be her. I wanted to be an educator like she was. And so when I found out that I was expecting my first son, I was lost and 19 years old. And the first place I decided I needed to go in order to do something different to give him a fighting chance was to the mosque. I went to the mosque at, I believe, 7 months pregnant, and I registered and heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that just changed my life. When he talked about the importance of what education is, and he talked about the importance of a mother as the first teacher, I changed my major from social work to education, and I knew that's what I wanted to be.
Wow. And so we also know, as I stated, that you are a co-founder of Elevated Places, which has produced and is producing many great students. Can you share with the audience some of the many accomplishments of the students being educated by you and your staff?
Oh, praise be to Allah. So the Elevated Places was founded in 2007. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina came and ravished the city of New Orleans and my home. Specifically, we had like 30 feet of water. The ceiling fell down and the floors came up. And so everything was destroyed. And at the time, I had just given birth to my youngest daughter. So my baby was, I believe, 3 days old when we evacuated, and I left with absolutely nothing. And I was going through postpartum and grieving my home and my family. I had never been away from my family. People who are born and raised in New Orleans typically don't leave. You know, it's a very close-knit culture. And so I had never had any aspirations of leaving the city at all, but especially not my family, because that's just something that we never did. And when I got to Houston and I was extremely confused, didn't really know what to do, a sister named Sister Melva reached out to me and she said, well, I heard that you are on this side of the city. The MUI at the time did not have all of the grades that my children, you know, to accommodate my children. They had like a certain type of age limit that they were working with it as they're growing. And so my children I assume we're going to be homeschooled. And she volunteered because she was already homeschooling children. She has 8 children herself. And she said, you know, if you need to, you can drop your daughter off, because I have a daughter that's her same age. And little did she know, when I got there, I dropped both of them off. I dropped both of my children off that were her children's age. And when she found out that I was a teacher, she was like, well, maybe we can collaborate and unify. You can do a couple of subjects, a couple of days a week, and I can do a couple of subjects. And it just went from there. It morphed into something when people realized that I was a real school teacher, because I was a certified teacher and I was homeschooling. They thought that was something that was different, because usually when you hear homeschool, it's associated with low quality. But Sister Melva had been producing really great students well before I had. And to come now into unity, it was, you know, I guess it just magnified. So with that vision of wanting students to be inspired and wanting them to have all of what I believe that I received from my homeschool experience, I think that's what made the Elevated Places dynamic. She was extremely stable and she had a level of maturity. I was very young and naive. And so I had a lot of innovation and I was like, we could do all of this. And so it created a really good balance. And from that, praise be to Allah, our students have been able to do exceptionally well. We have a very unique model. We're one of the first of its kind to have what's called individualized instruction, where our students don't necessarily have to wait to be a certain age to attain a certain grade level. It was always based on ability. And so we had students as young as 13 starting to enter into college, and they would finish their high school career with their associate degrees and leaving them only 2 years at the regular university level. And of course, lower debt, lower time. And it has just been amazing to see what happens when you put a unified effort together. When you have parents who really believe in the vision of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and they sacrifice to make it happen, because we've never received any grants. We don't receive any funding from anywhere outside of the parents and the fees and the creative ways that we've been able to fundraise. So it's been a blessing to see what happens when you work the economic blueprint and you do a unified program.
And I remember one of the things that first caught my attention about the school is when some of the students came here to New Orleans and they were participating in some type of like engineering competition, and they won. Can you talk more about some of the other accomplishments as well?
Yes. So like they were in NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do early on, expose them into greater areas of academic competition so that our children can be able to compete on a level with anybody. So they've been successful and won national competitions in the NSBE for engineering. They've been successful in doing competitions, what is called the AXO competition, which is NAACP. They have an academic Olympics, and they've won first place in things like chemistry, in astronomy, in physics, with all types of competitions and different things that they've done. So they've participated in that. They've participated in a lot of abroad programs. We have one of our students who was one of the only 12 members out of, I think, like 1,000 people to win a shale oil immersion program, and studied in Malaysia for, I think, 8 months. They've won multiple taekwondo competitions, multiple chess competitions, everywhere they can be. We strive to put them, to expose them and let them know that they can compete. When you have the name of Muhammad and when you follow that particular program, for some reason, we've always assumed that that was something that was going to be less quality, and it wasn't going to prepare them like putting them in some of the Catholic institutions or private institution. Some of the things that you may hear about in your city, they may have all of these other schools, but we've competed against the best and the brightest all throughout the city of Houston, and we've always been victorious by Allah's grace. And so our students come with a level of confidence to know that they can compete with anybody at any level. And I just believe that's because we kind of forced them out in the spotlight, even when sometimes they weren't really ready. We've done a lot of on-the-job training and had to learn. And through that, they literally just relied on the teachings. They relied on the parents. They relied on the staff being in there to prepare them on the weekends, after school, Friday nights, where they're building robots and perfecting their pitches and their competitions, and, doing all of that hands-on work and being extremely inclusive of the way that we prepare them. And so that's what I think that some of the reasons why they have been successful. Then, of course, we just have phenomenal students. I think sometimes we downplay the role of what this type of teaching does to a Muslim mind and to a young student. And even in other institutions, you'll see that the Muslim children always stand out because they just have something different under the tutelage of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that he's giving them and feeding them. He has a different relationship with them where he can say something and they believe it. And we say things and we have to convince them. But, he says it and they got it and they just run with it. So praise be to Allah.
Beautiful. And as we've got about 3 more minutes before we come up on our first break, but I want to ask you this. How can those who are watching this, what are some ways that they can help support? I mean, like donating, if it's, of course, finances, but just what are some ways that we can support?
Well, you said it. Number one, for sure, is financially. As we said, that the Elevated Places has never received any type of specific grants for education. Of course, with COVID, different things have been able to help, but we've never relied on anything else outside of donations and the kindness of the parents and the sacrifice of the parents. Even when it was time for us to move into a new building, we did a building fund, and each parent paid like they paid a Savior's Day gift. And every time we've had competitions and needed places to bring our students, we would have, some generous donors and sponsors to come to our aid. And so anybody who wants to help and further the cause, they can definitely go to the Elevated Places pages. You can find us on the Elevated Places on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. You can email us at elevatedplaces1@gmail.com. We have PayPal and all of the other things, our Cash App, the Elevated Places. So we're always looking for people who are willing to help because we need the help. Of course, we have different paraphernalia and EP apparel that, all of those donations as well. go to help and support the school. And on a larger level, even if it's not financial, I believe, and I've shared this with multiple people within our nation, that right now we're in a state of emergency when it comes to education. Our children are being engulfed, by social media and different things that they see in the world. And so because of that, it's important for us to make sure that we combat that as much as possible by giving them an alternative and letting them know, and a reminder that the way of the messenger works. And this is going to be our saving grace. And so mentorship, we need mentors. We need people to make sure that they're sharing their gifts and talents as well with the next generation.
Wow. So thank you. And what we'll do when we do these clips from this, we're going to make sure we include the donate information as well. So we're coming up on our first break, and I don't know if you all, I'm excited and I'm inspired by what I'm hearing from our sister's testimony. So we'll be right back after these brief messages.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
And we're back, brothers and sisters, to continue our interview with our sister Wakiti Muhammad. And also a special shout out to a co-founder of Elevated Places, Sister Melva, as well, for the wonderful job that you all are doing. And as an educator myself, it just inspires me to see, just it's a blessing to be around children who have a desire to learn. So you kind of touched on this in one of your responses, but we'll go back into this. I love hearing about how believers came to Islam, right? Their journey. You talked about how when you were expecting your first child, then also that began to start. You said, I want to come to the mosque. But can you talk a little bit more about that? Who did you hear? Was it a video from the minister you heard or somebody? How did you hear about the teachings and more about your journey?
Praise be to Allah. So I remember and I came in the late 1990s. And so in the 90s, around the time of the Million Man March, and I remember I had a friend and he was attending the Million Man March. And afterwards, when he came back, he was like, I don't think we can be friends anymore because, we can't have this type of thing. I want to join the nation and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? And I would always listen to different lectures. I always listened to different tapes. And of course, when you hear that message, there are certain things that resonate with you. I knew it was different, but I was super young. I wanted to do everything that I could that I thought young people do. And so I was getting, I went to college, and on the college campus, it was something that just wouldn't fit right with me. Sister Keontae and I, who, of course was a registered Muslim along with me, we all processed at the same time. We were both on the campus of Southern, and people would be talking, and we just always had a different perspective, and we always wanted to debate, and we would always try to present ourselves as though we were Muslims, but of course, in fact, we were not. And I got pregnant my freshman year of college, and I knew that in order to do something different and give my son a fighting chance, that I had to change my life, and I had to be extremely drastic about it. I had an amazing group of friends, but it was certain things that they obviously just didn't understand. I didn't understand it either. I didn't understand why I needed to kind of separate myself. I didn't understand why I needed to dress differently, to behave differently, to eat differently. My mother was so confused, and she was like, what are you doing? Is this like a Black national thing? What is this? What's going on here? What you going to do with all your clothes? Like, I bought all these, what you doing? And it was a tremendous change in my life, but I can remember vividly having a really bad argument with my son's father. And the next day, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was visiting New Orleans, and he was speaking at Mahalia Jackson. And that same friend that had told me we can't be friends anymore, he said, "Oh, I got a good seat for you." And especially when he saw that I was pregnant, I was like 6 or 7 months pregnant at the time. He said, "Come all the way up to the front." And the minister said, well, I sat on the front row, and the minister talked to me. I don't know who else was there, but the minister talked to me the entire lecture. The entire time he just kept talking to me and ministering to me. And I was crying, and I knew this is where I needed to be. And so it's very different for me, I guess, because a lot of women come in as a part of like a relationship, but I came on, the only relationship I had, it was like me and my son. It was the story of Hagar that I later learned about in hearing about sitting in study group. And I can remember people, and it probably was you, talking about different things. And when they talked about the story of Hagar, I said, this is me. Nobody wanted me. I felt alone. And here it is. God is using me to bring in this amazing person, which became, my oldest son.
Praise be to Allah. Wow. And also actually this, so we're all on this journey. What has Islam helped you to learn about yourself?
I was having this conversation with my husband the other day, just talking about the difference in how we're educated as Muslim women and then as Muslim men. Sometimes there's a lot of theory, but in our classes, praise be to Allah, the minister gives us a lot of skill. He doesn't give us just theory. He gives us a lot of practical application. And that practical application is what has saved, and created the person that I strive to be today. It has given me the base to be an educator. It has given me the base to be a mother. It taught me how to cook. It taught me how to treat people. It taught me, most importantly, the importance of self-improvement and constantly working on myself so that I can be better and better and better. There are a lot of things that I feel like I've done in my life that, and I think a part of this is where Queendom Come comes in. It's so many things that I've done that I feel like it makes you not worthy of God's grace. It makes you not worthy of being chosen. However, God always knows and understands what it is that he needs to do, the tests and trials that he needs to give us in order to purify us and make us the right material so that we can help further his mission. And in that, these teachings have given me so much substance, so much hope. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and especially the minister, has given me a lot of freedom. You know, when people think about the Nation of Islam or they think about Muslim women, the first thing they assume is that it's oppressive. Even in this Kevin Samuels, new dispensation where you hear so much of women and somebody else trying to tell us about our value. The minister is so wise in the way that he deals with us. And from that, I've gotten a level of freedom and a level of empowerment that I probably could not have gotten anywhere else. He's taught me the value of my experiences, the value of my culture, the value of my womanhood, the value of my virtue. And no matter what I have done and no matter what mistakes I've made, he's given me so much in letting me know that I am a part of a divine plan. And, that makes me important, in his eyes. That makes me valued in his eyes. And I can never thank Allah enough for the teachings of
Lord have mercy. I'm gonna say our sister is watching. I see in the comments, Sister Kiana, sometimes she'll post, that was a word, and what you just gave, oh my goodness. Listen, so much, but I'm gonna go to this next question. But that was fire. So we open the show and I showed a clip that appears to be recorded with something related to Kingdom Come, right? Kingdom
Yes,
Come.
sir.
So can you talk about more about the organization and what you all are doing in these last 3 minutes?
Yes, sir. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did a message, I forget the name of the specific message, but it was maybe around 2015, 16, but it was specific to women. And we were in the car, Sister Kiana, Sister Sadia, Sister Patricia, and Sister Oshia are all peers of mine in the MGT class here at Muhammad Mosque number 45. But they're very professional women. They're all educated women, and they're all extremely talented, but they're all very, very community driven. And so we were thinking about ways to help serve the community as we were going out and doing maybe a feed the homeless one day. And again, the same concept that's in the message to the Black man. What happens if we merge our strengths and our talents and give that to the community? And so you have Sister Sadia and Sister Kiana, who are attorneys, and Sisters Oshia and myself, who are educators, and Sister Patricia, who is in truth a Renaissance woman and can do pretty much all of the units. We all came together and we formed an organization for nonprofit called Kingdom Come, where we go out and we minister to young girls ages 13 all the way up to 18, and we're in the schools. That one right there, that picture was taken at Dillard University, and we just teach women about their purpose and their value, especially young girls who come from different circumstances like us. Sister Sadia, attorney, Sister Sadia is from foster care and grew, of course, and overcame multiple obstacles. Sister Kiana is from Compton, California, and was a teenage mom and had to overcome so many different obstacles. And Sister Patricia is from the islands, and Sister Oshia is from Flint, Michigan. And we were all saved by this word and from this teaching. And so as our gratitude and thanks to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we give back by way of Kingdom Come.
Oh, Lord have mercy. And I'm happy to say we've had many of those sisters on here. We got some other ones that we have to give, but just your response to Sister Wakiti is just on point, and just it's filled with so much. And it's just like what you were saying, what we go through, it makes us who we are. And before I get ready to close, I'm gonna send you this lecture that we did on, I think it was last Sunday, about how in difficulty there's development, you know, and that's what we don't realize. Like it's no matter how it's look, isn't a part of Allah's plan. So we're coming up on this on our next break. So brothers and sisters, if you're watching, share this with somebody else. Get them to come on to hear the last 30 minutes of our sister's powerful testimony, because she's bringing it. And she is an example to show of the wealth of talent that we have in the Nation of Islam with our sisters and what they're doing. So shout out to the MGT. So we're going to pause for this next break, and we'll be back with more of the testimony of our sister Wakiti Muhammad.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
Welcome back, brothers and sisters. We're going to continue this interview with our sister Wakiti Muhammad. So he's going to bring up a picture, and I want you to give us the context behind this picture. He'll leave it up for a while. So, before we get into these next series of questions about the minister, can you talk about what's happening in this picture, how it came about?
Yes, sir. So in the very early days of the Elevated Places, Sister Valerie, our captain, who is now Sister Malika, Brother Jesse, who is now Brother Kiam, they would always, no matter who would come into the city, they would bring everybody to the Elevated Places. This is when we were in Sister Melva's and Brother Isaiah's 2-story home. That's where the school originated. And everybody would come to this, 2-story house where all of these children are, and people are talking about they're doing these amazing things. And Brother Ismail had come, who, of course, is our national student minister now. But he came to the school, and during that particular time, we were sharing with him some of the things that the students were working on. They were working on a line of products at the time, and they were making their own deodorant. They were making their own butter. We had, the farm. And then they were doing this particular project where they were taking cotton and turning the cotton into material and using the material to do other things. And he was just so blown away. The minister was in the city because we were having a regional meeting. And he was like, you have to share this with the minister. And y'all need to be there. Bring the children. Y'all need to be at the children need to be at the meeting. And so what happened was, as they were, having regular general announcements and different things, he said, well, where are the sisters from the school? And Sister Mel was like, Sister Wakiti, you're going to have to talk because I'm so nervous right now because it's the minister. And I'm like, I'm just as nervous as you are. But, I went up and I shared with the minister everything that we were doing. And again, he was so pleased because anytime you mention the children, And that's his legacy. That's the legacy of his father. That's the legacy of all of our hard work. And he was so pleased, and he was just shaking his head, and he was in agreement. And every time I would just talk about some of the wins that we've been blessed to have, and he was just sharing, and he just said, and he was mentioning different students in the audience, and he said, look at her, and look at her, and look at the light, and look at I saw the little dancing machine, and and he was just talking, and he said, look at the light in your eyes, I don't, as you're talking about this. And he said, that's something that I don't want. We have to make sure we preserve. And that's been something that stuck with me this entire dispensation, because as an educator, and many times you do a whole lot of work without a lot of gratitude. It's being an educator is like being a mama. It's like a thankless job. You give and you give and give, and many times you don't see the reward until much, much later. And so it's always a lot of doubt that comes in, and I don't know how long I can do this. I don't know if I can continue to work in this capacity. But just listening to some of the things that he said, and just the light that he had in his eyes, as well as he was talking about the light in ours. And so he said, I want a full write-up. And so that's where we did the write-up. And I think Sister Ebony, I believe, took that picture, and all of the children. And he said he wanted to take a picture with the children. And so he got in the middle, and all of the children surrounded him, and you can see that they're all over him, like they hugging him, and he's hugging them. And, they love the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan all the time. And it's a blessing to look at that picture. And I see so many of our students who have graduated and went on to do amazing things, and some students who are still here now. And I can see the 2022 class is already there in that picture. And so that goes to the legacy of the elevated places, that usually when people come, they stay and they see it out. And hopefully the goal is, now we want to see those children come back. We want to see those children not leave the Nation of Islam, or not go out too far and explore into the world. We want them to remember all of those things and all of the messages that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put in them, and that they will come back and give back to their nation.
When I approached you about being on the show, you were like, hey, I've never met the minister. And I remember texting you saying, like, like, there's some people who have met Minister Farrakhan physically, but they have not met him. That's from my perspective. And you said something earlier about being practical, and how, and how the Islam has helped you with that. And that's one of the things in regards to what I admire about you, because, and just keeping a buck, sometimes we can get stuck into just the theorizing about the teachings, and we don't realize that we're here to make word into flesh, if you understand what I'm saying, right? And you all are doing that, especially what you all are doing with those children. And I can imagine, I remember being there, just a minister, to see that, and like to be able to have children graduating and then entering college at 13. I remember coming up, I was just thinking like, damn, that's something that just white children do. But you all are producing that not just one time, but several times. So, and I lead that to this next question. This show is titled, I Have a Testimony. And I always ask everybody who's on here that if you were given the opportunity to stand before the world and share something about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what would you share?
Wow, that's a heavy question. Oh, I'm just so grateful. I'm really, really grateful, because, and you see me kind of looking up, and I know people want me to look directly into the camera, but I do that to stop from being emotional, because it's a lot to take in when you think about the magnitude. When you think about the magnitude of the love of a man who continues to give and give and give, regardless of what other people have done, what other people have said. And I look at, as I mentioned before, my tests and my trials. And my tests and my trials, for some strange reason, have always been very, very public. I've never been one of those people who are blessed to suffer in quiet and behind closed doors. People know and understand that I'm human, because my humanness is always on display with myself and with my family. And when I think about what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has had to go through in the public eye, it gives me the courage to keep going. It gives me the insight to know and understand that my life, my sacrifice, my life, my death is all for Allah. And when we take our Shahada, when I took mine, I had no idea of what I was really getting into, the magnitude of what it means to be a servant of God. I had no idea what that looks like in practical terms. My testimony is that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan makes that real for us. No matter what happens, no matter in sickness, no matter what happens with his economics, his family situation, his health, people around him, the people he loves, he's consistent. He's consistent, and he's consistent in his character. But most importantly, he's consistent in his service. He keeps giving. He keeps giving even when there are multiple things around him that seem like, we're being ungrateful. We don't deserve his unwavering sacrifice. He's consistent in it. He's consistent in the way that he loves us as Black women. I'm always so comforted because the way that he teaches me is so much differently than the way that he teaches my husband and the brothers. When he teaches the woman in Islam, it's with so much love, with so much reverence. And because of that, it gives me an armor to go out and face this world, because, people will say whatever, especially when, your mistakes sometimes are public, or when things can happen. Bad news always spreads faster than the good news. But whatever happens, I know for a fact that it's because of Allah. He is the one that allows those things to happen, and it's always a part of a divine plan. I'm reminded by a lecture that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did, one of my favorites, and it's called The Savior's Day Gift. And in that, he talks about the titles and different things that we call ourselves. But he talks about the best one being called a Muslim, the best religion becoming obedience to God. And I've seen by the examples of yourself, of people like Sister Kiana and all of my friends that I see all the time, people that I admire in the Nation of Islam, Sister Sadia, Sister Sajda. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but most importantly, even my students, they're the ones who inspire me more than anybody else, constantly seeing the light in their eyes and the courage that they have to go about this truth. So my testimony, and what I would like to say to anybody when they ask about what Islam has done for me, it has taught me how to be myself. It has taught me how to accept God's purpose and calling upon my life. And it has given me the courage to follow it.
Man, got tears in my eyes over here, sis. But that's I'm reading Will Smith's book, and I watched a very powerful documentary about Mary J. Blige and just studying life, right? And one thing that I'm personally learning is that with life, like even what we consider to be bad or whatever, it's a part of the makeup, right? Like you think about with Mary J. Blige. If you ever go to a Mary J. Blige concert, it's like a religious revival. And when I was watching a documentary, I said to myself, but if we take those things that Mary J. Blige experienced, will we have Mary J. Blige? It's the same thing with Will Smith. And I'm just learning about just even personal about life, because in our journey in Islam, it's not going to always be a up. Sometimes we have our valleys, but the thing is, stay on it. You know what I'm saying? And it helps to enrichen us. And you familiar with Brother Stan Schofield, right? I remember just watching Brother Stan, especially when I became in Islam. I was like, man, how is he able just to have that impact on people? And I remember asking a lot of that, and it came to me and said, because he's been through a lot. And that's the thing. It's like we see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's ability to be able to impact people because he's been through a lot. And there's something that comes through that was experienced that allows us to be able to touch people. And I'm telling you, Sister Wakiti, I've interviewed a lot of people on here, but your words today are ministering to me, and it's touching my soul. Now my eyes are watering and all of this stuff. So we about to come up to our next break, and we'll be back with our Sister Wakiti Muhammad. Thank you all for tuning in.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Individually, we are poor when you compare us with white society in America. We are poor. Collectively, we are richer than all the nations in the world with the exception of 9. That's power right there if we know how to prove it. We begin the process of building a greater economic base. And at the same time, we are putting pressure where it really hurts. We don't have to argue with anybody. We just need to go around to these stores and to these massive industries in our country. Say, God sent us by here to say to you that you're not treating His children right. We come by here to ask you to make the first item on your agenda fair treatment where God's children are concerned. Now, if you are not prepared to do that, we do have an agenda that we must follow. And our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
So we're back to continue our powerful interview with our Sister Wakiti Muhammad. So I want to ask this question, because I know you're one of the coaches of the multi-championship winning team, annual Savior's Day drill team from miles number 45. And from my personal opinion, I really believe that what you all have been able to do has caused the bar to raise as it relates to drill. And listen, it is. So can you talk about just the level of preparation that goes into that training, and then how it feels when you see that you all get the victories, take the trophies home?
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. So I think in 2000, it could be maybe 2010, around that time. I remember it was early on after the elevated places had started, and all of the drill competitions had ended nationally. We weren't doing drill competitions at Savior's Day anymore, and the students at EP, we decided to do, or Sister Captain Malika asked us to do an exhibition at, I believe, at the Children's Village for Mother Khadijah. And when the students performed and drilled there, it was a catalyst for the drill competitions to come back. When the girls, some of those same girls who you see drilling now, they were one of those first people in the team. And Sister Oshia which was the Vanguard captain here in Houston, originally from Atlanta, and served under Captain Sister Nuseba. She came, of course, and brought her fire and brought that Atlanta, and then we had Sister Patricia, who was also there, and it formed a really, really dynamic group. Again, a lot of youth, a lot of energy. And as time kind of progressed, things started changing, because you were right. As we were winning early on, it did start to raise the level. And so the changing of the guards had to take place. And so Sister Rashida, who is actually Sister Melva's oldest daughter, she started becoming one of the head drill coaches. And a lot of people don't really know that because they see us all the time. But Sister Rashida was one of the head. And then in this last year, you had Sister Rashida, Sister Sadia, a bunch of youth who were taking over the leadership role as far as the creativity and the innovation. And that's what I always think makes for a good team, no matter what happens. I'm going to stick to this. This is my point, and I'm sticking to it, is unity. It's unity. When you can combine and you can do something with a unified effort, I believe you always see magic, versus one person and one person's creativity and one person's strength. When you can have everybody giving their input into it, you will see that. And so you will see them with the moves, and then Sister Captain Malika and other parents will come and help design cap uniforms. And then, of course, they will perform AEP, and we drill all the time. And so it's a whole culture. But the most important part, I think, that we don't really talk about is the spiritual component. We push that a lot with the girls. It's always more than just drilling and winning. It was always about, this is the reason why we're doing it. Because you're talking about some of the same people who work with Queendom Come and are EP teachers. And so they hear this conversation about purpose and intention all the time. So when you do something and your purpose is genuine and you're doing it with the right intention and the right motive, then I do believe that Allah blesses you. And so even if you may not get a top spot, even if you don't get the number one, you can still go and know that you gave it your all, and Allah will still bless your efforts because you did it with the right reason and intention.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what you're saying, and also what you're pointing out, and what you've been a part of with the drill, and even with the school, like you said, is showing what can happen when we really unify and put before our egos and all of this other stuff the greater mission. So we have a few more minutes before we close out, and it just Allah put this on my heart to ask this question. Like, what, for somebody who may see this video, it can be a sister in the ranks of MGT or even FOI, and they're at this point of their Islam where they might not feel their best as a Muslim for whatever the reason may be, but they're still holding on by a thread or whatever. Like, what advice would you give them?
Oh, unfortunately, that's my specialty. And not because I want it to be, but I remember a lecture you did, it was years ago. Definitely, I think before the pandemic, and you were using, because you always use stories, and you were talking about Allah knows all. And you were giving this, story about how this man was going through different things and he was in jail. It was just a whole bunch of stuff. But at the end of it, the moral is that Allah knows all. I gave my students an analogy not too long ago, and I was sharing with them, if you think about doing a 1,000-piece puzzle, when you look at a puzzle with 1,000 pieces, every single individual piece, one piece might have a little hook on one side and it's discolored and you can only see a little bit of the piece, and it looks weird. It looks like it's out of place. But when it all fits together, it goes divinely snug into that one spot. In our lives, I believe it's like that. I think each individual person is one of the 1,000-piece puzzle pieces. And all of the things that you think are your discolorations, or your hump on one side, or you didn't like this particular thing, or why I have to be all the way at the bottom. You're playing a divine part. And the moment you decide that I don't like this and I want to pull out, you're messing up Allah's plan, because it all comes from Allah. I really believe, since I work with children, I can use this analogy all the time, that our egos are tied to the success and failure of our children. And so because of that, anytime something happens that's really good, we like, man, that's a good parent, man. You did a great job. And then when something happens and it's not really good, they tell you, no, that wasn't your fault. Don't worry about it. Well, which one is it? Which one is it? Is it because of me that they did a good job? Then maybe it's because of me that they didn't do a good job. Or is it not because of me that they did a good job and it's not because of me that they failed? Which one is it? And to me, I really believe that it's all because of Allah. And when we start taking and removing ourselves, we can be used a little bit more, even when in the spaces where we don't really like it, even when it doesn't look admirable, even when it's not desirable. And that's what I would say. I would say, because I've been through so much that nobody wants to, willingly decide, I would volunteer me. I'm ready to be on the chopping block, volunteer my children. I'm ready to sacrifice them. Nobody wants that. But because that happens, you have to be willing to see the divinity in all things. And if we truly believe that Allah doesn't make mistakes, that means that he doesn't make mistakes about your life too. We can't superimpose that on somebody else and look at their life and say, man, Allah really be working through that person. But what about you? What's wrong with your prayers? What's wrong with your life and your sacrifice? What's wrong with you? You are just as worthy. He's working through you as well. It may not look like somebody else on the puzzle piece, but it's still divine just the same. And it's still important just the same. Just play your piece, play your part. And so to anybody who may be going through anything and questioning, I remember at some of the darkest times in my life, I remember asking, well, what if my prayers really do work? What if they really do? And if they do, let me just stick around long enough to see them come into fruition. And if I'm a pray, then I can't worry. And if I'm a worry about it, I might as well not pray. But let me just try to work my piece, my piece on 1,000 piece. And what that looks like to me is perfecting that one piece. I got to focus on self-improvement, because that's the tool that he gave us. And the better I get as an individual person, the better my perspective looks at other people. I can remember you saying this, Brother Willie, and this wasn't even at the mosque. We were at some event. One time I was visiting in the city, and you were saying that when you passed, you wanted people to talk about your character more than anything. And it was such a lightweight statement. You just said it and moved on. And that stuck with me, because I said, man, this is really what the whole concept of the mission is. It's about Allah making people to be better people. We have to be better people. And sometimes you got to put the fire amongst the people in order to do that. So if you're going through something, you're being purified and you're being used so that God can use you as one of his people. He's using you in your test as a testimony for somebody else. So your pain is preparation. Your pain is purposeful. Your pain has a reason for it. And I hope and pray that, whoever's listening that may be going through something, it doesn't get lost on you. Don't listen to the people, listen to the purpose.
Oh my goodness. And and I know we got to close out, but you are further confirming what Allah is blessing me to understand. Like, from the depth of what you just said, think about this. If we were to remove what you experienced, would you have been able to give a response like that? Like, you got tears in my eyes, real talk. You got tears in my eyes. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like you said, when your pain is the preparation, focus on the purpose. And that's the thing, sis, keep moving forward, keep being your authentic self, because it really shows that, listen, man, we all in this thing together. We're going to have our ups and we're going to have our downs. And the beauty of everything that one of the takeaways from me, Sister Wakiti, despite whatever it is you've gone through, guess what? You still here. You still here. And there's many that not, you are still here. And that's the beauty. And that's it, man. This is one of my favorite testimonies. So thank you. Thank you. And may Allah continue to bless you and all of those who are there working together in Houston. I see your sisters, y'all be supporting each other. Oh my goodness.
Yes, sir. I couldn't make it without them. I couldn't make it without them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so we're going to push, and we're going to ask definitely people to continue to support what you all are doing there in Houston. And if there's anything that we can do to help put any word out there for stuff that you're doing, let us know. And thank you. We're going to close out. We're already running over time. Thank you. May Allah continue to bless you.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you all. Continue to tune in next week.
Go home and study. See, many of you don't study your religion. Go ahead. And you think you're going to attain something without study. But if you believe in something, you need to study it so you can become proficient in what you do. Now watch this. God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.